I move to oil. Oil prices are rallying today for a second day amid preliminary signs that the new coronavirus cases are slowing in China. They might peak, easing concerns over the demand impact from the disease in the world's second largest oil-consuming economy. Now, during the morning trade, Brent crude prices were hovering about $55 a barrel, while U.S. Texas Intermediate, WTI, rose 89 cents to about $51 a barrel. According to data through Monday, the growth rate of new coronavirus cases in China has slowed to its lowest pace that we've seen so far. Bans on travel to and from China and on the movement of goods inside the country have cut fuel usage. The two biggest Chinese refiners have said they will reduce their processing by about 940,000 barrels per day as a result of the consumption drop, or about 7% of their 2019 processing runs. Now, joining me in the studio to discuss this, as well as domestic commodities, agriculture, and so on and so forth, is OLUFUNTO AFENIFUJA, an analyst from financial derivatives company. Funto, you're welcome. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
So, we're going to be talking, there we go, the lifeblood of the Nigerian economy. Yes, what are we seeing with the current state of the oil markets? What's happening?
So at the moment, as of this morning, Brent prices were at approximately $54 per barrel.
Okay.
As you said, they appear to be rallying at the moment.
Okay.
However, $54 per barrel is essentially what it's trading at, and this is due to the impact of the coronavirus.
Yes.
That is the event still affecting oil prices due to the fallout in their demand. And with China being the largest consumer of oil and the second largest economy, obviously we do expect that any dip in their demand will have an effect on the oil prices. And that's what we are seeing today. Because even though we see a daily change and that's increasing, if you compare that and you see the level of how it's dropping in terms of, if we compare it to Q4 and what it was last year, we see that it's much lower, but that's essentially what's happening at the moment with oil prices.
And of course, we continually talk about the need for the Nigerian economy to be diversified, but we constantly have to correct people. The Nigerian economy is already diversified. The issue is the diversification of revenue, because this is still the cash cow. We're just talking about cows in our other segment. This is still the cash cow of the nation. Yes, okay. Yes, and so there's still the need to diversify. Okay, so wait, what does this mean now with where things are, as far as the country is concerned, with where, I think it poses risks. What do you think? What does this mean for us now, with where things are with the prices, with crude oil prices?
As you said, oil is the mainstay of Nigeria. So any kind of dip in prices will have a significant effect on the Nigerian economy. We don't necessarily have to have confirmed cases of the coronavirus here before we start to feel the effect, because our largest customer is the epicenter of the virus.
Right.
So as we see a drop in prices, it will most likely have an effect on the Nigerian economy. And so last week, OPEC got together to try and decide what they can do to mitigate the fallout from the destruction demand.
Right.
So they came up with the recommendation of additional production output cuts of about 600,000 barrels per day.
Yeah.
So in that time, we started to see prices rise a little bit, with hopes that that would essentially be implemented. As of Monday, we started to see them slip further as Russia hesitated to support that recommendation.
Right.
So at the moment, prices are slipping because there's
of the uncertainty. Yeah.
Yes, because of the uncertainty, because now there are fears of an excess supply. And if we have that, then prices will continue to fall below. So essentially, the coronavirus is having a major effect on the global economy, because they are a giant in terms of their oil demand. So that's why we're starting to see the prices still fall below what they were as of Q4.
And I'm worried because our benchmark oil price in the budget is 57, right? This is now 54. I believe 24 hours ago, this was about 53. So for the average Nigerian on the streets, well, what does this mean? Essentially, your government can't make enough money in the budgets, and then your government cannot pay for your capital projects and so on. And so you and I, we're all going to be affected, right? Is that how we see it? If these things persist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we could. This is because, like you said, the price right now is below the budget benchmark for Nigeria. And not only are the prices below the budget benchmark, but production is 18.8% lower than the benchmark. And this has major implications for Nigeria, because now the fiscal concerns are worsening, because the government revenues could go down, and we already see our external reserves falling,
Yeah,
and
the
they are under pressure now to fall even below that.
Right.
And pretty much our fiscal buffers are pretty much exhausted.
Yes, they are.
So this makes Nigeria more vulnerable to external shocks such as this virus. So essentially, we're having this issue of. So essentially, the outcome of the next OPEC meeting could be really significant for Nigeria, because if Russia does give their support, which we do expect them to do so, and prices do go back to around, well, to over $60 per barrel.
Yeah.
Well,
then we can maybe breathe a sigh of relief.
But now, because, as you know, oil is paid for 90 days after.
That's a good point, yes.
So, yes, we're not necessarily going to feel the effect of the price drop right now, but the fear is...
90 days from now?
Yes.
So right now we're still collecting from Q4?
Q4, yes.
Okay.
So I don't mean to... Well, I mean to say it this way, but Nigeria could be in for a bumpy ride.
What about natural gas?
Okay.
Natural gas, I believe... Prices there have been falling as well, have they not?
Yes.
So what we still seems similar scenario to what you're seeing with crude oil?
Yes, natural gas has fallen at essentially a historical low.
Right.
And this has implications for Nigeria as well, because our revenue is...
Oil and gas.
Yes, it's dependent on natural gas as well.
18% year to date,
Yes, as we're talking about diversifying the economy, the prices of crude oil and natural gas need to even improve for us to meet the needs in order to spend more on the economy. So, essentially, if the prices continue to slip for both natural gas and crude oil, that puts us at risk.
Yeah.
And because essentially the budget revenue could underperform.
Yeah, because it's
and in terms of, as you said earlier, you said about the average Nigerian man.
Yeah.
It doesn't only just have an effect on the government revenue. It would obviously have an effect on the external reserves. It will push up the exchange rate. Well, it could push up the exchange rate, and that could lead to the increase in the price of goods, for instance. And that is obviously not great.
Which will crush disposable income.
Yes.
Anybody who's watching right now, your pocket is going to be squeezed. All right, let's move to agriculture, right? Agricultural commodities. I believe we're going to be checking out prices of what. So yeah, here we go. What are we seeing? What are we seeing here? Our good friends, wheat, corn, cocoa, sugar. Yeah, what's happening here?
So essentially, we do expect. I am going to mention the coronavirus again.
Yeah, you might, it's the biggest story
because China,
since January, the year started. Yeah, of course.
Yes, because China is such a huge consumer, especially, we see this especially with the grains, so with wheat and corn. There's been a fallout in terms of the demand for wheat.
Yes.
And so there is now a supply glut. So that would obviously have an effect on the prices. So we see that they're falling now.
Right.
With corn as well, China is such a huge consumer. Their demand is down, so prices are down. So with cocoa, Ivory Coast and Ghana, they are the top producers of cocoa.
Yes.
And they are going through a dry weather season right now. They're going through their Hamatan. So the dry weather is essentially drying out the fields.
Yes.
So production is obviously lower. So prices are obviously going to come up as a result. With sugar is having essentially a massive destruction in their production.
Right.
India has already declared that this year will be a deficit year in terms of sugar production. And Thailand was hit by a drought on Thursday. And it's not likely that they're going to recover soon from that. So that's why we are seeing an increase. So they were 15.01 here, and as of this morning, I believe they are 15.05.
Okay.
Or something.
So very marginal, marginal movements there.
Yes.
On the cocoa side of things, I believe, didn't Ghana and the Ivory Coast join forces to create some kind of OPEC for cocoa prices or so? Yeah, they did,
yes,
right?
They did.
Yes, they did. In order to try and push, prices up and earn more foreign exchange for themselves. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Now, as far as sugar prices are concerned, if I remember correctly, and I'm sort of deviating now to the border closure, I know that there were a number of companies like Dangote Sugar and some other firms that were saying that they had issues with smuggling affecting their outputs and so on and profits. So it's going to be interesting seeing how that works out. Okay, so as far as your outlook, you think things are going to? Are we going to tread water with regards to where these prices are, or the things going to be improved, things are going to get worse before they get better? Or what? How do you see things going forward?
As of right now, so if I'm talking about the grain demand, for instance, the coronavirus still has not been contained. So we don't know how long the impact is going to last. So we're not really sure how long that's going to take for the demand to increase in terms of the grains. With cocoa, once their weather improves, we can expect that the production will pick up and prices will decrease.
Okay.
So yes, that's written here, everything that I've just kind of said.
Okay.
So with sugar, we do expect there to continually be an increase in the near term due to the shortage in supply from the two top producers, so from India and from Thailand. And with cocoa, like I said, the poor weather conditions are going to continue to push up the prices. So if the weather doesn't improve, then they're likely to stay up.
You know, I want to pick your brain on climate change, because if you are an African country and you are dealing with agriculture, there has to be something to be said to how climate change is affecting countries like Nigeria. I'll give you an example. The drought in Zimbabwe that happened May of 2018 or September of 2018 carried into May of 2019. Affected their corn. Zimbabwe had an import ban on corn, and they had to now remove the ban and start importing from, I think it was South Africa, India, and a number of other countries. Then there was the locust issue that's happening in Kenya right now, in the northern part of Kenya. Weather patterns are a little more warm, you know, and some have said that the whole herdsman farmer crisis in Nigeria that's been happening. Well, have you guys, as far as your outlooks, have you subscribed to possible impact of climate change on some of the African nations and their outputs and commodity prices? Have you looked at that, possibly?
Well, not really, but at the end of the day, climate change is something that not only Nigeria, not only African countries, but it's essentially a world issue. Yeah. And that's why things like, you know, we might see later down the line competition in the oil industry, because now everyone is aspiring for
moving away.
A cleaner and yes. So if we go down, if we fast forward to like 2030, most people will be using renewable energy sources to power heat, electricity. So essentially, in terms of how climate change is affecting Nigerian countries, I would say yes, because as we can see in different parts of Africa right now,
we're seeing this.
We're seeing a decrease in production because the weather is affecting crops. So it is definitely affecting the agricultural commodities, especially.
All right. OLUFUNTO AFENIFUJA of Financial Derivatives Company, thank you for joining us and giving us your commodities outlook there. Interesting stuff.